You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for the week of April 10th, 2026. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where we answer the question,
did we lose a war?
It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
Short answer, yeah. We lost.
Yeah.
Again.
Uh-huh.
We lost another war in the Middle East, launched by another Republican president, based on another series of lies. Now, that's the short answer. And the longer answer is the main topic of today's show.
But first, another correction, which I seem to be doing a lot of these days.
Yeah.
Last episode, I had a brain fart, and I referred to the movie Giant, which is, of course, a sweeping 3-hour 1956 epic directed by George Stevens that chronicles a Texas ranching family's across 25 years. It stars Elizabeth Taylor, Rock Hudson, and James Dean. What I meant to say, or I thought I meant to say, was Exodus, which is a 1960 historical epic directed by Otto Preminger, detailing the founding of the state of Israel. It's based on a novel by Leon Uris, and it stars Paul Newman, Eva Marie Saint, and Ralph Richardson. It is also over 3 hours long, and it is blatant propaganda. And I figured out why I confused the two.
Oh.
Because I was thinking of Cast a Giant Shadow.
Oh.
Which is a 1966 epic starring Kirk Douglas, Yul Brynner, John Wayne, and Frank Sinatra. So hell of a cast.
What?
Yeah. It's about the creation of the Israeli army.
Oh.
And so my brain.
Wow. It's amazing how the brain works, isn't it?
Yeah. It shuffled the deck a little bit. Anyway, enough corrections for the day, Blue Gal. Let's move on with the events of the last month and, of course, their historical perspective.
Yes, let's do that. It should go without saying that every sane human being is relieved that our deranged, megalomaniac president did not nuke the nation of Iran on Tuesday.
Yeah.
It should also go without saying that any president who did what Trump has done should have been removed from office along with all of his henchmen the minute he made that kind of deranged threat, and yes, much earlier than that.
Yeah. But instead, many of the MAGA faithful are currently tying themselves in all kinds of knots, praising his savvy negotiating skills. And like the 2-bit mob thug that he is at heart, Trump now expects gratitude and a thank you from the rest of the planet for not killing millions of people and wiping an entire country off the face of the earth.
Are you ready? You walk through those doors, you forget any of this happened. And don't you ever interfere with my business again. Because if you do, I'll kill you and everybody you love. I'll kill you dead. That's what I'll do to protect my family, Pete. You understand? Hey, I just saved your life. Know what do you say?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
However, other prominent members of the MAGA cult are breaking with Trump and are building a mighty flotilla of lifeboats. What do we say about lifeboats, Driftglass?
Burn them with fire, burn them all. Yep.
With which they plan to sail away from the catastrophe they created. Mm-hmm. You know, just like back in 2006 when the same mopes were scrambling to escape accountability for that other disastrous war started by the last Republican president. That's why all this feels so familiar and so freshly horrible all at the same time. If Bush's Iraq debacle is Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie, by the way,
mm-hmm.
Trump's Iran debacle is Ice Ice Baby by Vanilla Ice, headliner at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the same melody, just sped up and dumbed down.
Yeah, this is stupid Iraq.
Yeah.
And I was on with Nicole Sandler earlier today. Thank you for inviting me again, Nicole. And she remarked...
Bob Seska yesterday.
Busy bee. And she remarked that Iraq was stupid. I said, yeah, I thought Iraq was stupid Iraq, but Iran is even stupider Iraq. So let's start with our history lesson today with George Bush lying to a hand-picked audience in Cincinnati, Ohio on October 7th, 2002, and using every rhetorical trick that his speechwriter, the late Michael Gerson, could come up with to conflate 9/11 with Saddam Hussein. Now, we're sure you remember this.
Facing clear evidence of peril, we cannot wait for the final proof, the smoking gun that could come in the form of a mushroom cloud.
But do you remember what Bush said immediately after that? Bush very deliberately cited remarks a Democratic president, President John F. Kennedy, had made to make the case that the U.S. had the right to attack any country anywhere that it perceived as a threat, regardless of whether or not they had actually attacked us. And Bush's speechwriters had to know how wildly dishonest this was, because Kennedy's remarks were made to the nation at the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis in October of 1962. Some of you might actually remember that crisis. They were occasioned by irrefutable photographic evidence that the Soviet Union was installing offensive nuclear missiles on the island of Cuba, which would put Soviet first strike nuclear capacity just 90 miles from the United States, and that those weapons would become operational in just a matter of days.
That really happened.
That really happened.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying. My brother was born right in the middle of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Which explains a lot, by the way.
What?
Which explains a lot, by the way.
Oh, it explains a lot about your brother. He's a sweetheart.
He is. He's a great guy.
Anyway, Bush, on the other hand, had no evidence whatsoever that Iraq had built a working nuclear weapon or would have one within the near future, or that any active nuclear program at all existed. He had no evidence of any kind that Iraq had any weapons of mass destruction, nuclear or otherwise, or that they had the long-range missile capacity to launch any such weapons, or had any intention of targeting the United States, even if they did.
But the point of revisiting this very painful subject is this. This was the original sin. Bush's case for a preemptive war of choice that was Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. Period. Full stop. Not that he might have, not that we're investigating. He has them right now. This is an imminent threat, which was, you remember, amplified by every conservative propaganda outlet from Fox News and Hate Radio to the Weekly Standard to the National Review. And pretty much the entire legacy media, you will also recall, went right along with all of it. And what happened if you questioned any of it? Well, at best, you were obviously dangerously naive. And at worst, you were an America-hating, terrorist-loving scum. And this went on for years.
And it gradually became clear that there were no WMDs, that there was no nuclear program, that we hadn't sent nearly enough troops, period. That the troops we had sent were only guarding the oil ministry and letting looters plunder the rest. That all over the country of Iraq, huge stockpiles of weapons and explosives were left completely unguarded and were also being looted. That political hacks and campaign donors were being put in charge of critical institutions because they didn't care.
Yeah.
They cared about the oil and the money and nothing else. And they were being put in charge of these because of ideology and support of Bush rather than their expertise over anything. And if you've seen the documentary No End in Sight, there are many memorable lines that have probably stayed with you, but these seem especially apt.
There are volumes on how we should do this. And almost none of this was integrated into the Pentagon's thinking.
We watched our careful planning essentially discarded.
There wasn't enough time, but maybe for the next war.
Well, this is the next war. And once again, all the experts' plans and warnings about what would happen if we attacked Iran were discarded wholesale by the imbecile madman the Republicans put back in the White House. And the morons, drunkards, political hacks, grifters, and fanatics that he turned loose within the American government.
So, back to Iraq, and oopsie, there's no WMD. Period. Full stop. Of course, Bush's true believers would never believe this, just as Trump's true believers will never believe they've been lied to 1,000,000 times. For example, this from Media Matters, January 4th, 2007. Quote, on the January 2nd edition of Fox News Hannity and Combs, while discussing the execution of Saddam Hussein, co-host Sean Hannity again claimed of Iraq's purported weapons of mass destruction, I believe there were WMD in Iraq, adding, I believe they were moved. As Media Matters for America has previously noted, the Iraq Survey Group's final report, commonly known as the Dulfer Report, did not find any evidence that illicit weapons were secretly transferred out of Iraq, period, unquote. So it's just a lie, a self-absolving lie, and one that Hannity would repeat over and over again for years. This is from Sean Hannity's radio show in February of 2016. 9 years later, I still think Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. I think he got them out in the lead up to the war. And again, on his show from September of 2016, I was a real believer in the Iraq war. I still am to this day. I still feel there were probably weapons of mass destruction. I do believe they were likely moved to Syria in the long lead up to the war.
And of course, Syria hasn't done anything to use those weapons against anyone in 20 years, 30 years, right?
Well, Syria's had a lot of problems, but there's no evidence that any weapons were moved.
They don't have them.
No, they
Sean
don't.
is lying to himself and everyone else.
Yes.
This is really important to understand, not just because Hannity lies constantly, which he has been doing nonstop on Fox for 30 years, and on syndicated radio for 25 years, and on local radio a decade before that. No, it's important to understand that he represents the mindset of millions and millions of Republican voters who would be absolutely willing to die with the lie before admitting they were fools and had been duped, or are offered an off-ramp that lets them keep their toxic beliefs, their bigotry, and their arrogant stupidity intact. Put a pin in that second option because we'll be coming back to it.
Yes, we will. Now, at some point, most of the public who are not in the cult come to understand that there are no weapons of mass destruction. And here's where the magic trick happens. So you have to watch very carefully. In fact, we're going to turn to the late, great Hal Holbrook in his one-man Mark Twain show from 1967 to explain what happens next.
In a republic, the government is merely a servant, a temporary one. Its function is to obey orders, not originate them. Only when the republic's life is in danger should a man uphold his government when it's wrong. Otherwise, the nation has sold its honor for a phrase. And if that phrase needs help, he gets another one. Even though the war be wrong, we are in it. We must fight it out. We cannot retire without dishonor. Why, not even a burglar could have said that better.
The magic trick happens when suddenly the Iraq war is not about WMD at all. No. Where'd you get that idea? It's about spreading democracy, which was absolutely not the sales pitch for this war in 2002. It rearmed, however, Bush's stooges with a new line of attack against his critics. Boy, those libtards sure do hate democracy. I wonder why. I guess they're just terrible, terrible people, Blue Gal.
You're all aware of the term Trump cultists have been trained like Pavlov's drooling dog to automatically dismiss any criticism of their dear leader, right? Trump derangement syndrome?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the derangement syndrome bit did not originate with the MAGA cultists, not at all. It was originally coined by the late Charles Krauthammer on December 7th, 2003, 9 months after Bush invaded Iraq. And back then it was called Bush derangement syndrome. And Driftglass, you and I had it.
We still do. It never goes away.
Derangement syndrome.
Yep.
This is from the Deseret News, December 7th, 2003. Bush derangement syndrome is spreading by Charles Krauthammer. Quote, it has been 25 years since I discovered a psychiatric syndrome, and in the interim, I haven't been looking for new ones, but it's time to don the white coat again. A plague is abroad in the land. Bush derangement syndrome. the acute onset of paranoia in otherwise normal people in reaction to the policies, the presidency, nay, the very existence of George W. Bush, unquote.
And even after Iraq went tits up, and the Bush derangement crew, that's you and me and the rest of us, were proven 100% right, Krauthammer could not get over his seething contempt for the left. So much that guess who repurposed the whole derangement thing for the Trump era, Blue Gal? Yup. This is from the Mercury News, June 8th, 2017. Quote, Trump derangement syndrome is spreading by Charles Krauthammer. Having coined Bush derangement syndrome more than a decade ago, I feel authorized to weigh in on its most recent offshoot. What distinguishes Trump derangement syndrome is not just general hysteria about the subject, but additionally the inability to distinguish between legitimate policy differences on the one hand and signs of psychic pathology on the other, unquote. What an asshole.
Now, Krauthammer died in 2018, 2 years into the first Trump administration. And we would have said that his death spared him the indignity of having to admit he'd been completely wrong about Trump, and we of the derangement crew had been right all along. But as we've already established, I'm sorry to say it, but assholes like Krauthammer are incapable of admitting when they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, back in the Bush regime, the war was still right and righteous, even though the reason for it proved to be a lie, because we now have a brand new reason for all that blood and treasure being spilled in Iraq. Democracy.
Yay.
Or was it the new rationale going to be this from George Bush's speech to the nation, September 7th, 2003? Quote, Iraq is now the central front in the war on terror. Enemies of freedom are making a desperate stand there, unquote. But, Iraq had nothing to do with the people who attacked us on 9/11. You know, Al-Qaeda. And what about that Osama bin Laden fella?
Yeah, that's a great question, Blue Gal. An excellent question. And it's one that John Kerry raised in one of his 2004 presidential debates with George Bush. And you know what? George Bush just lied his fucking ass off.
When the president had an opportunity to capture or kill Osama bin Laden, he took his focus off of him, outsourced the job to Afghan warlords, and Osama bin Laden escaped. 6 months after he said Osama bin Laden must be caught dead or alive, this president was asked, where's Osama bin Laden? He said, I don't know. I don't really think about him very much. I'm not that concerned. We need a president who stays deadly focused on the real war on terror.
Mr. President.
Gosh, I don't think I ever said I'm not worried about Osama bin Laden. It's kind of one of those exaggerations.
So I don't know where he is. Nor, I just don't spend that much time on him. I repeat what I said. I truly am not that concerned about him.
So the rationale for continuing with a war we never should have started became, we have to stay because we went.
Yeah.
And remember, this was going to be an easy war, Blue Gal. Nothing like Vietnam, no quagmires. And Bill Kristol promised us this. Just decapitate the regime, whip a little democracy on them, and we're out by Christmas. And with Iraqi oil revenues paid to us because they were so grateful for all of our hard work, the war would be
greeted as liberators, Driftglass.
Liberators. Statues would go up. Squares would be named after George Bush. And because of all that oil revenue, the war would basically pay for itself. Wouldn't cost a taxpayer much of anything, really.
Then the easy war became the long war.
Yeah.
And we start to hear that nation building is hard.
Oh.
And this was always going to take years. Then, as it begins to slip away, the war isn't wrong, the execution is wrong, which is how you turn a strategic failure into, a technical glitch.
These things happen.
And the memory hole begins to open wide, and suddenly the story is that everyone believed the intelligence. Everyone did.
Everyone.
And the existence of dissenting voices is quietly erased. The media also collectively agrees to forget the absolute cocksure certainty with which the war was sold and their part in it, because the bombs were good ratings.
They were great. They were wonderful. And Bush was a war president, and there's nothing more fun to cover than a war president bombing the shit out of something. Then what began with cheerleading and flag waving and certainty and the relentless mocking and marginalizing of critics turned into, well, mistakes were made. Very passive voice. Mistakes were made. But now we must look forward, Blue Gal, not back, forward. So as time moves forward and reality has its way, like a Polaroid picture slowly developing, it becomes crystal clear that the left had been right all along. Now, were they honored? Was the left honored? Did we get any credit? Did the left get any credit? Were we seen as the logical choice to look to for further wisdom about the dangerous trajectory the Republican Party was on? Because, we were right.
Of course not, Driftglass. What's wrong with you?
I know. I'm Bush derangement syndrome. It never goes away.
Because the one constant pillar in Republican politics that remains intact under all conditions, even as everything else they claim to believe collapses or inverts or vanishes, is their Pavlovian loathing of the left. And again, Laura Ingram's show, if you can stomach 2 minutes of it, you'll see it. This has been the motivating insanity behind the fake Tea Party, the unhinged racist reaction to Barack Obama, the election of the king of the birthers to the presidency, the J6 insurrection, and the re-election of the king of the birthers. This bone-deep belief that the greatest enemy of American democracy is the Democrat Party, Driftglass, that we Democrats are fundamentally illegitimate at every moment and therefore cannot be allowed to govern. So when Democrats win elections, they must have cheated or used some other deep state trickery, which is taken by the right as a red flashing warning light that America is under immediate and existential threat, and that they, as the rightful heirs of the founding fathers and the only true patriots, white men.
White Republican conservative men.
Right. They have a God-given duty to drive that Democrat Party from power by any means necessary. Even upending the government, even paralyzing the presidency.
Yeah, even storming the Capitol. It's
even
so dangerous.
Even shitting on the floor of the rotunda.
Yeah. And then, of course, you get pardoned for that because you're a real patriot.
Yeah.
So instead, what we got was a term I coined, believe it or not, Blue Gal, all the way back in 2010.
Yep.
The term is strategic forgettery, which is the willful forgetting of things you don't want to remember. It's basically doublethink from 1984. And faster than you would have thought possible, conservatives and legacy media made the past just go away. It's now called the before time, and we're not supposed to go there anymore. As Don Draper tells Peggy in Mad Men in the hospital after she gives birth to a baby that she then has to give away, this never happened. It will shock you how much this never happened. But while that is necessary for the survival of the Republican Party, forgetting everything is not sufficient because the base will still privately feel icky and a little bit ashamed about all the shit they said and did during the glory days of the Bush administration. And however deep the media buries it, they still know it's there. It's down there. Evidence of their complicity, like the telltale heart, like Edgar Allan Poe's telltale heart, is there under the floorboards, but they can still hear it beating and beating and beating.
And as we said before, back in 2016, Trump won the loyalty of the base by offering them an enticement that no other candidate could match. On the debate stage in South Carolina, he didn't offer them more forgetting. He offered them something that would silence the beating sound of their shame forever. He offered them absolution. He told them that the Iraq debacle wasn't their fault and that it was a stupid idea and it was George Bush's fault. Bush had blown it and had let us all down. And now the party wants you to vote for that loser's weak, vacillating brother.
What an insult. What you want to vote for Jeb? His brother? Really? Losers? So let's map the pattern that you see happening over and over again in Iraq and Iran. Step one, absolute certainty about an imminent threat. No doubt about it, Iran is 5 minutes away from nuking Indianapolis. So we must act now.
Step two, reality arrives to flip over the game board.
Yeah, how inconvenient. Step three, keep changing the justification in the sloppiest, stupidest way possible because you believe your base is so stupid they'll never notice. This is about nuclear missiles, or maybe it's about terrorism, or maybe regime change, right?
Or maybe it's about deterrence or leverage or economic security. Don't forget economic security, Driftglass.
Got to have that, Blue Gal. That's a great justification. You change and then change the terms for ending the war. On March 6th, it was, quote, there will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender, all caps, exclamation point, unquote.
A month later, and Trump has basically surrendered. Today, he asked Israel to stop attacking Lebanon.
Please. I thought he said he spoke for all countries in the Middle East, Blue Gal.
Yeah, he did speak for all countries in the Middle East and say, please don't hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed to a framework that gives Iran pretty much everything it wants and more, and has pitched the idea of going into business with them to jointly run a shipping lane protection racket. We are not making that up.
No, that's one of the art of the deal plans on the table there, Blue Gal. Now, step 4, very important, continue to attempt to rewrite the base's collective memories so that no matter what, going to war was always the right thing to do, and anyone who says otherwise is a terrorist-loving traitor. The position never changes, and accountability never arrives.
And the war goes on in a liminal political space where the war is over, but the war continues. There is a ceasefire, but there is not a ceasefire. It's in 2 weeks. There's no, 2 weeks? And it's not about oil, except it is about oil. And it was a purely defensive war, but it's also about regime change. Until the final rationale becomes, we achieved our objectives. What?
What?
And those will be defined after the fact, and it'll all be about how Trump is a hero.
Yeah, there's a cartoon somewhere, I forget where, of someone shooting arrows at bullseyes, and they're all bullseyes. Every one of them is a dead-eye bullseye. And then you see what happens. They fire the arrow at a tree, and then they go paint the bullseye around the arrow to make sure everyone knows that you're a dead shot. But see, this isn't just about Iran or Iraq anymore. It's also about how a media ecosystem protects itself. How there's no moment where anyone says we were wrong. Instead, they say, let's let Barry Weiss run CBS. That's how we'll cope with this, because the system doesn't reward those things. Instead, it rewards staying on message, shifting the frame, and forgetting the past.
And merging your companies. That's
more and more power under fewer and fewer people.
Yeah.
So, Blue Gal, what did we all really learn from Bush's disastrous war in Iraq?
Well, we learned that Republicans can sell a war on false premises, that when things start to go wrong, they will change the rationale midstream. They'll attack anyone who notices and then quietly pretend none of that happened. Because if no one remembers what you said yesterday, you're never wrong.
Strategic forgettery. We're bringing it back, people. We're bringing it back. So let's assume for a moment that Donald Trump has backed a significant percentage of the Republican base into a corner from which there are really only 2 ways out. Option 1, say that you're wrong again and apologize, which is impossible for them to do at an almost biological level. Their entire nervous system would short circuit if they tried to do that. So that is never, ever going to happen.
Well, I think it will happen to the extent of being interviewed at the gas pump about $5 gas. And the woman called Donald Trump a piece of shit and said, I'm an idiot. But yes, that they always add to that Democrats are as bad or worse.
Right. And that's what opens up the second option.
Right. And the second option is some MAGA influencers break with Trump just enough over issues like the Iran war or the Epstein files that they create space for themselves to do to Trump what Trump did to Bush and the Bush brothers over a decade ago. Claim once again, well, we were bamboozled.
It was all fooled.
It's not our fault. We were lied to. And it's not that the left was right about how arrogantly stupid and bigoted the Republican base is. What milk-fed chumps they are, ripe for the picking? Of course not. Listen, Republicans, you're still smarter than everybody. You're still more patriotic than everybody. It's just that somewhere along the line, Trump changed, man. He changed, not you. I don't know what happened, but he let us all down. Probably his underlings, probably misled by bad people around him. Yeah. And the latest that I heard just before you and I started recording Driftglass is he just got too old.
Well, yeah, there's that. He just got too old.
He just and Candace Owens is saying time to put Grandpa in the home.
Yeah. Well, and
he was great. He was great when he started. I believed in him.
Back in the day, baby.
Age caught up with him, man. Yeah. That's it. Right.
Glory days, they'll pass you by. And they passed him. But he was great in the day, man. He had a fastball, couldn't be beat.
I never regretted it. I never regretted supporting him. I'm sorry that age caught up with him, but I would never regret it. Right. Blah, blah,
so whatever
blah.
the case is, whatever excuse they're going to be offered, or multiple excuses they're going to be offered, the MAGA faithful will flock to whoever it is that can thread that needle most successfully, who can tell the MAGA morons exactly what Trump told Republican base on the South Carolina debate stage in 2016, that this wasn't their fault, that Trump just blew it and let us all down. Just keep emphasizing your oneness with the mob. You are one with them. Yes, Trump started off awesome. Just like you, I thought so too. Just like you, I was at the rallies with you. I used my platform to give Trump big public blowjobs. And then Trump got too old or was misled or was sabotaged probably by deep state insiders.
Mm-hmm.
And this allows the base to remain loyal cultists, to retain their community, leaderless, but without feeling ashamed because it wasn't their fault. And then there's the pitch. Now is not the time for bickering, Blue Gal.
This is supposed to be a happy occasion. Let's not bicker and argue about who killed who.
The real enemy, the dirty baby-killing commie Democrats, are at the gates, and they're only getting stronger, and soon they'll come for all of us unless we unite under the wise leadership of, insert candidate name here, and we have to stop them. So when you read stories like this from Newsweek today, Driftglass, do you remember Newsweek?
I do vaguely remember a magazine called Newsweek.
Quote, Marjorie Taylor Greene has said she thinks the Republican Party needs to be burned to the ground in an interview with Alex Jones. There's the punchline of this entire show.
Buried the lead, yep.
Founder and host of InfoWars, unquote.
Yeah, or there's this from The New Republic just 2 days ago, quote, Trump freaks out after Tucker Carlson implies that he's the Antichrist, unquote.
Don't think for a minute that these ambitious MAGA middle managers breaking with Trump means MAGA voters will join with Democrats to undo the damage they have done and help us advance our progressive agenda. Hell no. They won't.
Absolutely not. Many of you have asked us to what an upgraded version of the Bush-off machine would look like and when it would arrive. And if you need an explanation of that, I did a post a long time ago called The Bush Belly Sneeches. It was a riff.
Belly Sneeches.
Yeah, it was a riff on good old Dr. Seuss's The Star Belly Sneeches. And it's a machine that they concocted to take all the Bush identifiers off of you for a few dollars. And I wrote the whole thing in Dr. Seuss verse. And you go through the machine and suddenly you're an independent. You're not a Republican anymore.
And you have a Gadsden flag on your belly.
You have a Gadsden flag. And you just hate deficits and you hate those Democrats and you hate Barack Obama. And it's not your fault. It wasn't your fault. And so here it is. This is it. The Trump off machine, which uses all the same levers and all the same gears as the Bush off machine because it'll be used by all the same people for all the same goddamn reasons. So Greene and Carlson and Alex Jones and Candace Owens are still the worst people in the world. Never forget that. All they're doing is creating a safe space for the MAGA base to run to when the going gets too ugly to bear. A safe space where they won't be judged or asked any uncomfortable questions like we liberals tend to do. Just like the Tea Party scam, once again the base will be offered painless absolution at rock-bottom prices, Blue Gal. This is the off-ramp we talked about at the top of our show. The one that lets them keep their toxic beliefs, keep their bigotry and their arrogant stupidity intact. All they have to do is ditch most of their Trump merch and follow a new leadership team, Blue Gal. That's all it's going to cost them.
Right. And the leadership team might look something like this, Driftglass. This is from, once again, Newsweek today.
Wow. It's coming back, Blue Gal. It's coming back.
Yes, right. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ro Khanna may unite to create populist coalition. That word may is doing a lot of work there.
Yeah.
Khanna, a Democrat, and Greene, a Republican, have criticized the ongoing war in Iran. Khanna said in a video on X on Tuesday that he is relieved that President Donald Trump has accepted a ceasefire. But let's be clear, this did not happen because of Congress, which barely made a whimper. This happened because of the force of the American people, not just progressives and liberals, but conservatives like Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and even Ann Coulter spoke out against the horror of threatening genocide against other people, Khanna said.
And the alert listener and reader will notice that Khanna didn't say Republicans in Congress who are the problem. He just said Congress. Congress is the problem.
And he continued, this tells me one thing. The only thing that will save this country, the only thing that will save our democracy is a broad populist social movement. Anti-Epstein class, anti-war, pro-working class.
Yeah.
And I would bet you immediately following that talk, there was a text message fundraiser that went out to Marjorie Taylor Greene's mailing list.
Oh, yeah. Green
saying
and Carlson.
Green and Ro Khanna are putting together a coalition that even a Democrat agrees that this has gone too far. And
right.
Please send $5 to Marjorie Taylor Greene's Political Action Committee or some new American Way, Third Way coalition thing.
No. One exists already. It's called the Bulwark. It's a
all right, we're not going to go there today.
No. I'm not going to go there, but I'm going to say.
You promised.
I promise. They build themselves as a pro-democracy coalition. With no litmus test for joining.
Right.
So, why wouldn't they? So Green responded on X. This is still from Newsweek. Ro, I agree with you that we need a strong populist coalition of the right and the left that can come together on the most important issues for the future generations of Americans, unquote. Let's all see if we can agree on what those issues actually are.
Send $4 to Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's what this is about. Yeah.
Do you think there should be a constitutional amendment banning abortion forever and ever? That's an issue. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how you'll unite behind that. And as some of you might remember, the early Tea Party started off with a coalition of younger, hardcore ideologues and some older political predators. And remember how that turned out? This is from NBC, December 26, 2012. Quote, the story behind Dick Armey's attempted coup at FreedomWorks. Oh, boy, does that bring back happy memories.
Oh, my God. Dick Armey.
Dick Armey, man. Dick Armey. Armey reportedly used an armed aide to stage a coup at the powerhouse grassroots organization FreedomWorks in early September. Former House Majority Leader Dick Armey tendered his resignation as chairman of the powerhouse Tea Party group, FreedomWorks, almost a month ago. As it turns out, there's a much more intricate tale attached to Armey's departure from the organization, the Washington Post revealed Wednesday. The account tells of a coup attempt by Armey to oust the group's president and frequent guest on Hardball. Remember Hardball, Blue Gal?
I do remember Hardball with Chris Matthews. Yes, I do.
Matt Kibbe. Remember Matt Kibbe? No one remembers Matt Kibbe.
I don't remember Matt Kibbe.
According to the newspaper's account, Armey walked into the FreedomWorks headquarters on Capitol Hill on September 4th with his wife, Susan, an armed aide, and proceeded to expel Kibbe and Senior Vice President Adam Brandon. Anybody remember Adam Brandon?
Nope.
From the premises. In the end, the hostile takeover attempt was thwarted by Illinois millionaire and hero and FreedomWorks benefactor Richard J. Stevenson. Did he swing into action, Blue Gal? Did he put on a cape and cowl? No. He agreed to pay Armey $8 million over 20 years in exchange for Armey's departure from the group. That's a fucking shakedown if I've ever heard one.
Armey was good at that.
Yeah, he was. But that was the Tea Party. That was the coalition that was going to renew and refresh America. It wasn't like, back to the article, it wasn't like they didn't know who this guy was. And to me, the big mystery is why the Washington Post didn't just say who the guy was. They made it sound like a guy in a hoodie was brought in off the street. This indicates how bad the blood is between both sides, said David Korn. Joan Walsh, Salon.com's editor-at-large, who had a highly publicized dust-up with Armey and Hardball.
You can say that again.
Back in 2009, did not mince words when criticizing the former House Majority Leader, calling him, among other things, a grifter. I once sat there while Dick Armey told me he was glad he couldn't be married to me, Walsh said of their confrontation. I think he's a jerk. I think his wife came with him, and she's a big jerk. And I say a pox on all their houses. I'm glad they're shooting at each other and not the rest of America, unquote. So, good luck with your new roommates, Congressman Ro Khanna.
Yeah. All right, Driftglass, we're going to do a news roundup, and once again today, only one item.
Yep.
This uplifting story of harmony, good feelings, and Jesus.
I'm glad there's some Jesus in there, Blue Gal.
From Media Matters, April 9th, 2026, quote, heretic. After Trump's spiritual advisor, Paula White Cain, likens Trump to Jesus during Easter, right-wing media figures lash out. And before we read the hilarious hypocrisy of right-wing so-called Christian influencers, let's actually hear what Paula White Cain had to say at a White House Easter event.
And Mr. President, no one has paid the price like you have paid the price. So true. It almost cost you your life. You were betrayed and arrested and falsely accused. It's a familiar pattern that our Lord and Savior showed us. But it didn't end there for him, and it didn't end there for you. God always had a plan. On the third day, he rose, he defeated evil, he conquered death, hell, and the grave. And because he rose, we all know that we can rise. And sir, because of his resurrection, you rose up. Because he was victorious, you were victorious. And I believe that the Lord said to tell you this. Because of his victory, you will be victorious in all you put your hand to.
He fucked a porn star and bribed her to keep silent and took the bribe money payment off his business taxes. Yep. What would Jesus do, Driftglass?
Well, there's taxes involved and prostitution. So I think he'd probably sit down with the tax collector and the prostitute and tell Trump, you're going to burn in hell.
You're going to burn in hell.
I will be dancing on your grave.
Well, and Paula White, who's now Paula White Cain, is just the, smarmy Christian version of Stormy Daniels. Blonde and big tits. Mm-hmm. And that's what Trump wants in a woman in his orbit.
The oral majority, if you will. Yeah.
Oh, God. Anyway, this is from Media Matters again. Right-wing podcaster Tucker Carlson. And I said to you, as we were talking about this, how the mighty have fallen, you said, no, he's bigger than he was when he was on Fox.
Way bigger.
And I believe
Way bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he was cast out like Jesus.
Like Jesus. He was cast out and he came back.
He was born again. Yes. Mm-hmm. But Tucker Carlson said, it's hard to believe that's real. That is so vile. It's such a sacrilege. Standing in front of American flags in the White House with some kind of beta evangelical leader nodding along as you liken the President of the United States to Jesus, the Christian Messiah, God in human form. How could you say something like that? How could the rest of us sit by and not protest when she said something like that?
Wait a minute. Us?
Us.
Who the fuck is
he
us?
Said us.
Yeah.
How could any Christian watch that and not feel revulsion? Well, and you notice that was the Christian meetup at the White House. They all clapped.
Come to Springfield. I'll introduce you to at least a dozen Christians who feel revulsion at this.
Oh, yeah. At least a dozen. Mm-hmm. Well, because people didn't pay attention or they didn't think about it. Oh, it's just the praise that Trump demands. Whereas, all right. Again, we're coming back to InfoWars host Alex Jones, who said White Cain comparing Trump to Jesus is a manipulation of American Christians.
Hey, that's my job.
Alex Jones has never manipulated anybody, has he, Driftglass? Nah. I like Trump having religious leaders. I like Trump standing up and going to National Prayer Day and going to the pro-life march and getting the IRS off the back of churches. That was all good. But here she is likening him to Jesus. This was not very popular, so they pulled this video off the White House website. Conservative pundit Eric Erickson, that's what he's been boiled down to. I still remember the goat fucking.
Oh, I still remember when he was the cover boy for some top conservative influencer, Eric Erickson. Media radio giant Eric Erickson.
Right. But he called a Supreme Court justice a goat fucker.
Yeah, well, he does lots of things like that.
Yeah, and then he was, a better person or something.
No, he wasn't.
He noted that the clip of White Cane comparing Trump to Jesus has burned through the Christian community in a not good way. He added also, it's no wonder the White House took down the video from YouTube. As if that, you talk about absolution.
Right.
Well, they took it down from YouTube.
There you go. Say 10 Hail Marys and take it down from YouTube.
Yeah, take it down from YouTube.
Yeah.
Right-wing provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos.
Let that description rest there for a minute.
Yeah. He's apparently now one of the, right-wing media figures we have to quote in these things. He referred to White Cane as a heretic con artist who preys on the poorest, dumbest, and most desperate people in America.
Again, that's his job.
You're taking away my job. You're taking away Milo's job. Finally, and the cherry on the sundae, conservative influencer Brett Cooper suggested White Cane is batshit crazy and said, "That sounds like a cult, Paula, and I will be saying no to that." Cooper also said that she is understanding more and more every single day why the founding fathers believed in the separation of church and state. And maybe these people should not be involved in our government, is all I'm trying to say.
Wow. Brett Cooper. Welcome to the resistance, Brent Cooper.
It's an awakening, Driftglass.
We need clarion clear religious voices like that on our side, Blue Gal. That's what our movement lacks. Is it Brett Cooper and a Eric Erickson and a Milo Yiannopoulos out in front with a big old sign saying "Follow me" and give me $5.
Yeah, right. Well, What can I say? We ask for $5 also, but it's not to be Milo Yiannopoulos.
No, we're not right-wing provocateurs.
No.
Hey,
each week we post to our Patreon page and website an Internet Kitty sent in by you, the listeners. This week's Internet Kitty is Spot. Spot is a fluffy black and white furball kitty, and we love Spot. Spot is showing off Spot's belly, too. And of course, Spot eats freshly poured cat food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve pet store perfection or dollar store dreck, your cat will sit on the kitchen floor or maybe just show off his belly and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured. Freshly poured, freshly poured. Oh, my Lord, it's freshly poured. You can visit Spot at our Patreon page, patreon.com/proleftpod, or our website, proleftpod.com. And you can send your Internet Kitty, dog, or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, subject line Internet Kitty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you send me a lizard. I will not find your email if you do not put at the subject line, don't spell it Kitteh, please. Just spell it kitty, Kitty, so I can search for Internet Kitty and find your email. So feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service, go Postal Unions, letter on the air unless you say otherwise.
And both of us have had kind of a crazy long day today. I mean, I had to get up at dark 30 to get you to work so I can go help share the
community organize,
which was great. We had a great meeting. It was wonderful. Lots of people showed up. It was a success. But then bounce over to you. You had to go someplace, and then this, and then so on and so forth. So you know what I could use right now? I'm not going to drink one, but I could use one. Is a cup of gourmet coffee. That would suit me just about right now. So we have a gourmet coffee guideline. If you're able to treat yourself to an espresso-based beverage, we ask that you consider treating to us one as well. My sentences are falling apart, but you understand me. You understand my meaning.
We're asking you to consider treating us to one as well.
That's what I said. Not at all. And the movie was Cast a Giant Shadow, Blue Gal. This isn't charity. This is how we support the work we do. If you can spare just $5 a month or more, we'd really appreciate that. And thank you very much for doing that. You can find us at patreon.com/proleftpod, one word, or Venmo, and then look for the Professional Left Podcast.
And we're not going to send you any texts like Ro Khanna and Marjorie Taylor Greene are going to do.
No, we're not going to do that, even though we're trying to become lefty provocateurs. I think, and the way you can help us become, leading lefty provocateurs.
No, I don't want to do that.
Who show up on the Nicole Sandler show and the Bradcast and the Bob Seska show on a regular basis.
And the Bill show. We're going to be on the Bill show later this month.
Yeah. So you can do that. It costs you nothing. This other thing costs you nothing. Just share our show on social media. Find somebody you think would love our show and have them give a listen. And 5 times out of 10, 9 out of 10 doctors, 9 out of 10 dentists recommend you do this. So it's good for them. It's good for you. It's good for us. And we do really appreciate it.
And we will be putting a link to the Bob Seska show that you were on yesterday.
Yep.
And the Nicole Sandler show that you were on today.
Absolutely.
Because while I'm at work answering phones, Driftglass is becoming a media influencer,
Sure.
Provocateur. I think that's what the word we were using, right?
Provocateur. If only I didn't. If only I weren't such an introvert.
Provocateur.
Yeah.
How are the internet kitties doing this week?
Well, frankly, look how the internet kitties want to hear a lot more about the batshit heretic lady.
Let's think about living. Let's think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the bopping and the loving, lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the whine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with a switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional Left podcast is produced and recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright DGBG Productions. ProLeftPod.com.